Okay, good evening, class. Let's start this. Hoping that God helping us the network will cooperate. I'm using my normal network, so let's just pray that it cooperates. Okay, so today we are going to optimality theory, and like I said, we are taking the whole of the module, but it's quite large. Let's just see how it goes. Yeah. As I may share and I have to share something else. So let's go. So today we are focused. Last week was module 3, but we are doing module 4 today, like I told us before. So we are going to module 4 today. Now in this particular class, we'll be learning about the general overview on we'll be going through the optimality theory. Like I said, it's quite large, so I am going to just be doing summary, and I expect us to read up the rest. Then we'll look at the constraint families of optimality theory, and then we'll also look at the segment. Wow, sorry, please, there's something wrong here. You see, cut and paste. Cut and paste, you see your life. Okay, there's something I need to remove from here. Yeah, so this is it. I forgot to remove that. So look at segmental features in relation to optimality theory. Then what are we expecting that we should be able to do at the end of this lesson? We should be able to give a general view of what made optimality theory, which we can shorten to OT. Identify and discuss the constraints families in optimality theory, and also review the interconnection between segmental features and optimality theory. So these are the things that we are going to be working on today. Yeah, so let's look at could you people not see my system, what I was sharing before? I hope you can see my system, right? You can see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So we are looking at the optimality theory and looking generally at it. So the first thing is that it's an offshoot of generative grammar. We have said that this is the tradition that we are following now. So this theory is also an offshoot of generative grammar, and it has to do with constraints imposed on it by elements in the structure. It is not controlled by rules, and I have a question for us on that later. It's unlike metrical phonology and the rest. It's not controlled by rules, because when you look at your metric phonology, you are supposed to, I don't know whether we talk about that, about rules and more rules. But one thing that you also know is that you have about tendencies. You just talk essentially about tendencies, not only that, if A is equal, if you add A plus B, that gives you C. So you're always having tendencies, rather, and because there will be always exceptions. Now, it's not controlled by rules in the structure, then it goes as far as handling constraints in the language at both the segmental and the supra-segmental levels. Then it is essentially concerned with how the language relations are mapped into the surface realizations. And then we also find that it can be found actually applicable in virtually all areas of linguistic study as an applicable theory. Now, this is the view of some scholars. And I always tell you one thing, that we learn also to challenge views. You don't just take everything clean and sinker. Now, these are the studies that have been done, and these studies have also become a challenge to the one that went before it. So, before them rather. So, what we are doing today, we are going to be looking at different aspects, but just see that, yes, optimality theory has come to give answer, but then does it also have its own questions? So these are the things that you also ask yourself. Now, constraints are determined at hierarchical level is then they are determined by the level of hierarchy of relevance from left to right, from the highest to the lowest. So that is how the constraints apply. So if you are having an element being constrained, it will be applied based on which one is actually what will save the structure. Just like I think we have in the syntax, how we save the structure from what they call it here is fatality. So from crashing. So the lower the constraint, the more likely it could be jettisoned, and the higher one override it. So if an element is constrained that, okay, if you say you apply this rule now that this particular sand, now it is obstructing or causing problem for the realization of a particular element, maybe in a syllable or in the sand itself, then it has to give way for something that is higher that could actually be more effective. So, and this is what we are talking about when we talk about the constraints in the optimality theory. So let's look at the mechanism that helps it to work. Now, you have the gen, which is called the generator. And I don't know, I think is at the point I will have actually want to take us to the main, to the, what was it called? I want us to look at the some of these examples as we go along. So generator, which generates universal candidates for constraints. So you have this particular element is the one that helps you to identify, okay, this is going to be a constraint for this particular structure or this usage. Then you have the constraints themselves. Now, these are universal constraints in natural language that can be violated. So they are violable elements that you can have in the language. And then also understand one thing about quantum theory that, yes, they have universal elements, but then they are language specific. So now that one evaluates the inputs which are language specific and fitting. So it determines the output which are optimal. The output that will be the best fitting, the one that you say that, okay, maybe we call in grammar that's converging, the one that will make sense. So this is what these elements do. So this one helps you to say, okay, in all the usages that you have in this language, these are possible things that can become constraints. Then in all the language again, you have these constraints that can be violated. Then you now have is also the instrument that helps you to determine, okay, in this particular language, in this particular specific language, when it evaluates it, okay, this is the one that can help you to produce the structure that are converging, the one that will not crash. So this particular one now, yes, it is what helps you to determine, okay, instead of a structure falling into fatality, then it can be saved because of this application of the constraints. Now you have symbols that you use in the constraints in the optimality theory. So you have the pointing finger, which identifies the optimal or winning candidate at the output level. Now, if you put constraints together, like I said, okay, I think this is not where I said it. You have constraints are actually a matter of conflict. Now, if there are conflicts, there are elements that are going to be conflicting, then you look at, okay, which of these elements can you say, okay, if you drop this, then this one is preserved. In that way, you are able to save this one is the one, just like when I gave you the example of the grammar of copy, then you say, okay, but if you have copied out, if you don't remove the second copied element, it may actually lead to it being the structure being crashing. So you now look, you look at this one to identify the optimal, the winning candidate at the output level. So if by the time we have said that what OT helps you to do is that it helps you to map out the particular elements that you can the possible elements that you can have in the structure, but in realization is the output. And by that, but just like you have transformations, these things go through different elements before they can finally be brought out. And we are going to see examples of that as we go along. Now, the asterisk and exclamation mark, why I need you to know this is that when you are applying it in maybe analysis, then you can know what you are doing. Now, the asterisk and exclamation mark indicate a fatal violation by a candidate. Any candidate that cause a fatal violation cannot emerge the winner. So you have conflicting elements. Then which of them is it that we cause problem for that structure, and which of them will help it to survive? So, like I said, the one that has the highest possibility will likely overshadow, the other will be taken above the one that will cause problem for the structure. Then that indicates a violation. Of course, that's what we also use in grammatical structure. When you have an asterisk, it means that there's an ungrammatical structure. Then you have this double, I don't know what arrow I will call it, that is or greater than sign, that used to indicate the domination in the constraint ranking. And then you of course have this the apostrophe that indicates mutually unranked constraints. Now let's look at let's look at the first activities for me to know that you are following me. Identify the OT mechanism, 3 OT mechanisms, and discuss any one of them. We have actually identified 3. We identified 3, and I want us to tell me that which of them. So we actually so which of them? Can you identify the 3? Can anybody identify the 3 and then discuss just one? Are we with me?
Yes, ma.
Yes, I said yes. I said 3 of the optimality theories and mechanisms, and then discuss one. You don't know what I'm talking about. I just discussed it now. I just discussed all these things now. Every time I'm asking here, there are things I just discussed.
Ma, I want to try, ma.
Okay, please do.
So 3 OT mechanisms. There's con, there's ever, and I can't remember the third one, ma.
It's Jen.
Jen. Jen.
The third one is Jen.
But the explanation, ma, I don't know. I didn't even get the explanation.
Okay. Good evening, ma.
Good evening.
Okay, I just joined. Sorry, there is is it the one, because as you said 3? Sure, whether it's about the onset, the peak nucleus. I don't know.
No,
I just want. Okay.
Please don't just watch. I said what mechanisms. I said mechanisms. That's what I said. I've not talked about this thing. So all the people that were in the class, they were not, let me see how many of us. 13 of us were in the class, or maybe 12, and then you just join.
Hold on,
Can I tackle the second bit?
Hello, Daddy.
Okay, you're
Yes,
ahead.
Yes,
Who is that person making call inside my class? Who is the person making call inside my class? Please mute yourself. How can you be taking call inside the class?
Yes, Prof. I
Okay.
said I want
try the
I want to give mention two symbols in optimality theory. One is the pointing finger. Yes, which actually identifies the, I would say, the winning candidate. And then another is the asterisk. The asterisk shows a violation. And then we have asterisk and then exclamation mark, which indicates a kind of fatal violation, a very brutal one. That's just what I can say.
Yeah, the one that added the brutal. Okay. So, thank you. Let's go now. Let's go. So we have optimality and constraints. Okay. So optimality and constraints of segmental features. We have constraints for syllables and we have constraints for stress patterns. We have constraint for phrasal stress. Look at tendency aligned by what we've been to wonder, but what I want to now, this question I have, but I'm going to stop sharing now and share from the coming. I will share from the CM because I cannot bring out all of them. So I said what I will do is to show them one after the other. I think that's okay. Okay, so let's take it one after the other. Now I'm going to share my screen. Then we will look at them. I will run through them. Okay, let me see now. Yeah, this is it. So we have the constraints for segmental features. I think we can see now. So we're looking at the family of constraints that actually affect the structure. I'm going to run through it because it is much. We have 4. I've identified them for you in the slides. We have 4. So now let's look at the constraints. Let's look at the number. Let's look at the, don't mind the typos and all of that. Just let's look at this. Now we have C3. What does it mean? It's assigned violation. Are we seeing the screen now?
Yes,
hello?
Prof.
Yes, ma'am, you can see it.
Okay, so we are going to look at, we have about 4 that we're going to look at. So I'm going to rush through and there are plenty. So I'm going to rush through. What I would just advise is that please, after the class, take time and look through them. Take time because according to see, we are not looking through our course material before. I still posted it in our e-learn platform. This particular one I'm using. And I see that we are still not looking at it. Even the one we already have, there is all these things are inside. So, but it's like we are not looking at them. So assigns, so C3 assigns 1, so constraints C3. Assign violation mark for candidates forms that have less or more than 3 consonants, so try consonants. Then we have the one that has less or more than 2. Then we have at an FP flow. That means that any phoneme at the word level that is not plosive in cause violation. Then we have the C coda. Now it's assigned violation mark for one open syllable or syllable that ends with consonant. Okay. Okay, let me see. Then we have the KM. The assigned violation to pillar key as the medium. Then we have the V coda, assigned violation to voice phoneme at the coda. Then we have the C coda. Now this one is consonant sound at the coda. Then Chi, assigned violation to palatal, it actually should be palatal alveolar. Palatal alveolar. palatal alveolar at the middle. Then you have the deep, assign violation to candidate or form that bears insertion. Then you see what I'm saying? This is the first family now. You see how many things are there. We have the complex, we have uniformity, we have max 10 or max IO. Then we have Fate C. Now we assign evolution to any output that does not correspond to input in consonants. Then Fate V. Then this one assigned to any output that does not correspond to input in consonants. Then we have that should be in vowel. Assign value to any output that does not correspond to, that should be vowel. Then we have phase POA, violation to any does not correspond to input in place of articulation. Then ident M, violation to any output that does not correspond to input in manner. Then assign violation to any output that does not correspond to input in place of articulation. At the central, now the same thing again. So this one violation is at the central position. Then you have constraints of syllables. We have the onset, syllables begin with a consonant. So the constraint is that the syllable must begin with a consonant. That's what makes it an onset anyway. We are going to see that as we go along. Then peak, syllables have one vowel. Now, again, when you say one vowel, are we talking about anyway, let me leave my thought. Let's just look at the constraints. Then no coda, syllables end with a vowel. Complex, syllables that have at most one consonant at an edge. Fate V, vowels in the input must maximally represented in the output. I think we see again, it's almost repetition of what we have gone through. Some of them, like this one now, we see. The marks, every element in the input must have corresponding output. There should be no deletion. Okay. Hiatus, adjacent vowels have the same features. Try C, there should be three consonants, which were the first thing we saw in that one. Onset, no coda. There should be no coda at the initial syllable. So that means that the initial syllable does not have coda. So maybe probably it may, of course, we have some words like that have some syllables like that within them. So then we have the initial plosive should be aspirated. Of course, which plosive is it that can? That of course is the plosives that are voiceless. Then of course, if it is a voiceless plosive and then it's not aspirated in the initial position, then it becomes a problem for that syllable. So I think that's what we are having here. Then constraints for stress patterns. Now let's look at the stress pattern. Routine, the root of content words must be stressed. That one is, of course, we may have this, but we probably do not know what is this. Okay, there's a comment here I want us to look at because we're going to discuss this. The constraints are, however, general tendency, not absolute loss. Thus, there are syllables in language with or less some of these properties. Okay, so I just wanted to draw attention to that because I have something for us to think about that as we go along. Then routing. Okay, I've mentioned routing. Then fit bin. This indicates that fit are binary at some level of analysis, moraic or syllabic. The constraint requires that a full contains two morals as in monosyllabic or disyllabic or two syllables, regardless of their weights. Now that one is a heavy root to play. Markness constraint, two-footed and footed, so persistil or pre-seal. The align lee or align feet left. So energy foot must stand at the left of this. I don't want to draw attention to all these things now. I'm not telling you to memorize them. You take time and study them if you want to study phonology. Trochee or fit type troch. Now, its faithfulness constraint, it assigns one violation mark for every foot that is not left-headed. Way to stress principle, WSP, the constraint assigns one violation mark for every heavy syllable that is unstressed. Now, non-initial, non-int, assign one violation mark for every foot that is word initial. Then CRSR assigns one violation mark for every instance of a schwa between a consonant and a retroflex. clash. This will be adjacent stress syllabus. I think I discussed that somewhere, or we discussed it last week. The constraint ensure that there are no clashes among the stress syllables and one violation mark is assigned. And of course, we said that if you have such clash, we said something happens. I think in the last class, we said something happens. Can anybody remind me? We said something happens. So I am assigned one violation mark for every food that is not right-headed. Now let's look at constraints of phrasal stress. NSR, nuclear stress rule, stress the rightmost elements in phrases. Now that credit is given to in 1996. LCPR, lexical category prominence, operates on simple compound rules. So we also talked about the last week. CRC, compound stress rules. Stress the penultimate word in stress expressions. Then GER, bridge euphony rule. Then we have the routine rule. We mentioned something like that. Content word must be stressed. We have to need syllable. Okay, it says that bridge euphony rule. It says that every strong lexical item should be followed by a weak position. And no weak lexical item should be preceded by more than one weak position. Yes, because the normal thing is that you have stress on stress, stress on stress. Assign stress on the last content word, which carries the central position of tone units. That's TS. Then PAPR, HPC, highest condition, TGA, left head rule. So all these things, right hand will identify that stress should be at the rightmost. We have seen that too. I think when we discussed it last week, they identified that stress should be at the leftmost. That's left head rule. It emphasizes that. Now that's usually probably maybe when you have a content word that starts at that point. Then straight lexical rule at the right hand of the lexical configurations. Alignment relates to the lexical structure. So that's why you have TGA, text to grid. The HPC, conditional prominence on the lexical item that has highest position at a phrase and there's no way I could start copying this into slides. That was that. What I'll do is to share it with us on the system. So this is that. So I don't know, you can digest this, but I want us to, we have looked at this, but there's something I want us to look at here. I don't know which one is which. Okay. So these are the different, I've taken us through the different constraint families. That's what I've done. Now, constraints and tendencies. Okay, so I have a thought. I said, looking at tendency outlined above, we begin to wonder how really rule-free is the optimality theory. I want us to think of that. Now, let's look at this. Give your views on the outline constraints in any of the classes of constraint discourse. And the second one say critically examine the claim that what is rule-free and give your own perspective on this. So I have two things for us to look at. So if somebody want to bear the card, what's your thought on any of them you think you want to talk about? You're free to raise your hand and I'll call you to tell us. I tried to take us through all of them. And I said, do not try to memorize because it will not do any good. You can take your time and look at all the constraints. And you can see some of them, they actually, they are entering one another on the different classes. But we have been told that optimality theory is rule-free. Now let me have your thoughts on this. You see what you're not reading ahead of class, what is doing to us? Hey, my people. Okay, let me go back. We look at optimality and constraints families. We look at constraint for segmental features. We look at constraint for syllables. We look at constraints for stress patterns. We look at constraints for phrasal stress. These are the things I took you through one after the other. Is that okay? Now say, okay, looking at the tendencies outlined above, we have taken them through. It is not in this slide. It is what I shared before. How really? Let's look at it. They say OT does not follow phonological rules. So I said constraints and OT, rules or tendencies. So OT does not follow, but I'm not asking, looking at all the constraints we are looked at now. Now you can discuss them. Then you can also critically examine the claim that OT is rule-free and give your perspective. So I want us to think that. I want us to think about that. Are you still thinking, or if somebody wants to tell us what you think? Want to give us your view? PG class. Okay, so let's look at OT and suprasegmental pictures.
Just talking.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at the OT and segmental features. Okay, somebody want to tell us? Okay, go ahead. Sylvester, you want to talk about this? Please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Okay, ma. Please, ma. This particular activity too now, I'll be very, very frank. It's not, in fact, I don't even get an idea. I don't have an idea of what he's talking about. I don't know if you can just step out in this area instead of leaving us for it. I don't have an idea of it. I think there was a time I sent of this particular activity too. Now, give your views on the outline constraints in any of the classes of the constraint discussed above. Quickly examine this thing. I don't actually understand that. There was a time I sent a message. It was in line with this particular optimal theory. I was just trying to weave it and use the example and trying to connect. I wasn't getting any understanding of it. I can remember I dropped that something that basically need big attention in this area. And thank God, please, man, I don't know if you can just explain more things. They are actually giving a bit of a problem. Like I said, I opened the module very well, even some weeks ago, and I was not getting anything. I was not getting constraint. Thank God you are trying to put it to work or on its own. It's not clear. Please, man. I don't know if you can still put more purpose on it, and so that you can just get a better understanding. Thank you.
No, which aspect do you want me to throw light on?
This optimal theory.
What I'm asking here is for you to give now. When we started, we said that optimal theory is more based on rules. Is that also?
Okay.
We say it is not based. Okay. Let me go back to where I started from. I said that it's an option of generative grammar. It essentially has to do with constraints imposed on elements in the structure. It is not controlled by rules in the structure. Now, when we look at all the things I just shared now, it will tell you that if this one have this, becomes a constraint for this, and then the thing there will be filter crash. If this one happens to this, and I'm now asking you, looking at tendencies outlined above, we begin to wonder how really true rule-free is the old optimality theory. That's what I am asking you. That's what I'm asking. And I said, okay, give your views on the outline constraints in any of the classes. And as I was discussing them, I mentioned them. I'll go back to it now. But when I tell you, people examine the claim that OT is rule-free and give your own perspective on this. Now that is you to look at. I took you through. We were told that there are no rules. But now, when we look at a lot of things outlined, and then you now said that if some of the tendencies, yes, there are just tendencies, but not everybody fits into it. So I know what I'm asking now. Okay, give your perspective on that. And I told you, I said, okay, if I tell you to, I cannot tell you to start cramming everything. And that was why I told you, okay, give your view on the outline constraints in any of the classes of constraints that you understand. Then I said, okay, now, but give your, when you have been told there are no rules, but now you are not having up to how many? Ola, you want to help us? Ola, you want to help us?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Good evening, ma. Thank you, ma. I think I would disagree with the optimality theory.
Okay.
Because I think rule is what you should observe when dealing with a particular concept. Now, OT is now claiming that it is rule-free. But looking at all these items itemized, they are rule already. For example, talking about the routing, the content word must be stressed. Now that I think is a rule. So saying that this is a rule-free, I totally disagree with it because rule has already been given. For example, when we look at the aspiration is in the aspiration that initial plosive must be aspirated. As in when you have something like a part, then that P has to be aspirated because it is initial plosive. So that I think is a rule on its own. So saying that the optimality theory is rule-free, I think I disagree with it because it has already given rule on its own. That is my own view, that it is not right to claim that OT, personally, according to my own view, OT also has its own rule, even though it claims that it is rule.
Please, is it my, what do you answer me? Is it my internet? Can you hear?
I can hear you, ma'am. I can hear you loud and clear. Hello, ma. I can hear you loud and clear, ma. Hello. Hello. Hello, Prof.
Let's put on for now. Maybe it's our network.
Okay, okay.
Network.
Okay.
I'm muted. Yes, I'm back. Continue.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prof. So what I'm trying to point out here is that the claim that OT is rule-free is what I disagree with. Because looking at all those things itemized, they are rules themselves. So, for example, telling us that tri-C must have 3 consonant clusters. Then routing, content word must be stressed, and so on and so forth. Then initial plosive should be aspirated. So all these, they are rule on their own, which are the concept of OT. So telling us that OT is rule-free, I disagree with it. That is my own perspective, sir. Ma. Hello.
Maybe our network is bad.
Yes, it's bad, I think, because, okay, the screen is still on, but, pardon?
I should come up now. Mr. Laiwola, I think I still agree with you. I agree with you. These are rules, and before she comes up, these are rules. If you look at it,
considering the meaning of a rule, and a rule is somewhat the guideline, I think by my explanation of rule, it is the guideline. And optimality theory is also giving us guideline on its own. So I don't
look at the constraint for syllabus now. Look at the constraint for syllabus now. The onset syllable begin with a consonant, must begin with a consonant.
Of course.
Pick a syllable, add one vowel. No coda, syllable end with a vowel. These are rules.
These are rules. So how free? How rule free is optimality theory? How rule free is it? When it
okay, I can see that Mr. Olaiwola and the other man, you really understand this logical, because seriously.
I think when I read this particular module some weeks ago, I was having serious headache.
I'm telling you. Let me just come out now. I'm a lecturer. But
no, they are rules. These are rules. You can't say they are free. Okay, look at the now.
So it's like I'm hearing so many things that I've not had in a very long time.
Of course, even hello, Mr. Akira.
Yes, sir.
Even though I've heard something about the syllable, I mean the phonological division of a syllable before talking about onset, nucleus, coda.
Seriously,
All these hiatus, tricy, routing, and some other words like this. So, telling us, look, maybe when the professor's network comes back, she will tell us something different. Maybe when she comes back.
Seriously. Because I wanted to raise it. Okay.
Look at generative phonology 1. Look at generative phonology 1 in our material. Look at all those nationalized rule, phonological rule. I mean,
rules. Yes.
About nationalization rule that the ending vowel that finds before nasal consonant has to be nationalized. Ending that comes after before has to be dropped. These are rule already. Okay, so this I think is what optimality theory going against.
So that's why you pretend that it's not right, because
it's not. Yes. If they give their rule, and this one is also telling us that content word must be stressed, and something must have 3 consonant cluster, something must be aspirated. Are they not rules? So if so that is my own view. That is my own view anyway. I think Professor is back.
He's back. Mommy is back. Mommy is back. So she will.
Okay. Professor back.
Mommy, you're welcome, ma.
Okay, thank you very much. It's interesting listening to you guys. This is what I've always wanted in my class. Okay, so does anybody disagree or anybody have a different perspective? You can let us have your perspective. Olaiwola has given his perspective. So do we have any other perspective?
No, I don't think Mommy, please. I think I agree with Olaiwola in the first place, because these are set rules in the first place. If you even flip back to Module 3, phonological rules of the thing, we'll look at that. So I think we should stick to that and control for syllables. We have been on for you. So these are rules. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, can we read up on this and find the tendencies and do a paper? So maybe not for this class. We want us to group ourselves and then give a paper. Maybe, I don't know if we can have 2 groups or 3 groups. Let's read up on this. Let's read up phonological rules. Let's read up on the metrical phonology, and then let's read up on optimality theory, and let's have 3 presentations. I will finish teaching next week, so that the last 2 weeks we just do presentations. Though I think okay, let me put the phonological rules and the optimality theories, pitch them against each other, because the last class we are going to do is about Nigerian English. So I will want a paper on that too. Can we have groupings? Olaiwola, can you help us coordinate and group people?
All right, ma. All right, ma. I will be
So
happy to do
let's
that.
have group and share the topics. Then we'll look at them. Then we'll do presentations in the last class. Then we'll discuss them in the last two classes. Is that okay?
Okay, ma.
Yeah, this is where I've always wanted my class. So I wanted us to think. I wanted us to think. I wanted us to challenge status quo. When read up, let's now say why the automatic theories say that there are no rules. When obviously what they're giving us are theories, or maybe they are guidelines, or like somebody said, they are tendencies. I don't know. But let us read up and let us find out why.
Okay.
Then we can either challenge it, or we say, okay, oh, eventually this is for this reason. That's why it is this. And that's how you do it. Is that okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. I thank you for a lovely, more challenging class tonight.
Thank you.
Let's look at optimality theory and segmental features. So constraints are now like this is what we said. What optimality theory is a constraints are. Wow, what happened? My internet has gone. Are you guys hearing me?
We can hear you, ma.
We can hear you.
But it's showing me, my system is showing me that there's no internet. So I don't know why. Okay, let me
we
continue.
We can hear you loud and clear, ma.
Okay, thank you. So as long as it's not telling me it cannot, so let me continue. I want to believe God for the best. Okay, so concern and conflict because the issue of constraints, they conflict because when one constraint satisfy what the rule says, the other one is probably going to violate it. And then that is why you see now that you kind of do a choice between the lesser evil. Now it also suggests trying to save the structure from fidelity and requires sacrificing lesser constraints. But let's look at how this plays out, and we look at the syllable constraint, we look at moral, and then I don't know if I can look at the examples, then we'll take them. Somebody send a chat. Okay, so now let's start with the syllable. So we are looking at suprasegmental features and optimality theory now. Now, usually, what is the syllable? That's the question we have here. Now, what's the syllable? Now, when you have a syllable, is a combination of high and low sounds, now which are usually a combination of vowel and consonants. So you have the vowel having the highest point of sound because of its sonority. So it tends to give its loudness. And for this now, we have what we call the weak and strong stress. Now, when we also look at the issue of the structure of the syllable itself, it talks about the onset, the nucleus, and peak, and the coda. One thing that I think we should be used to now is this particular structure of the syllable. The structure of the syllable is a very simple one to identify. So now we have in the onset, you have the optional category that where you can have a consonant. What makes an onset is the consonant. And now when a consonant begins a syllable, you call it an onset. Now you can have more than one, but let us not forget that it is optional. It's optional in the sense that you can have syllables that do not have initial consonants. You can have them. So let us see some examples here. You have C, you have they, you have calm, you have fry, you have spill, you have spilled. I didn't even know I was giving the same example when I was giving spilled. Now you have this, all of these words, they started with a consonant. And that's why you call them, that you say that, anyway, let me not say a, because fry has two consonants, spill and spilled have two consonants initial position. Now let's look at the second one, is nucleus and peak. It's usually the highest point. And it consists of the vowel and it is obligatory. It must be present in a syllable. It must be present in a syllable. So this is what we're talking about. So, and you have example of R. You can give me more example, or. or even or. So you can have, of course, you are understanding that this means that it is just the vowel that is making up that syllable there. So that's why we say that it is the obligatory element. And you have some, you can have small examples, please. You can give me more examples as you go along. Then you have coda. Yes, I have 7 minutes. You have coda, the final periphery of the syllable. And it could be made up of one or more consonants, and it is also optional. Then you have the example an, you have then, you have oil, you have wound, then you have shoes, then you have students. So here you have again, you have all the elements that has only the final consonant. We have the one that has both final, the initial and final. Then you also have the one that has more than one consonant ending it. And we'll talk about that more. So this is the structure of the English syllable. I don't know, when you look at the indigenous or the other syllables that you have, like when you get to Nigerian English, you talk about this one. You may not have exactly the same operation, but in the English syllable, you have this particular way that it is structured. But then, like in any, I think in any language you may have, the only obligatory element is always the vowel that makes up the nucleus of the syllable. Now, there's another element that's also part of what automatic theory tries to look at. Now, it is the syllable. Now, when you look at the moral, it is the syllable length, and it is abstract, and usually indicated when the syllable coda is followed on the right by another consonant. Now, when you have the structure of the syllable, like the example that we gave of students, because the moral is usually about the weight of a syllable, and then whether it is heavy or it is light, and what makes it to be either heavy or light, I think I mentioned this in the last year, is the fact that when you have syllables that are followed by the same, the consonants that are just one or following the other on the right hand, then you tend to have a moral. So, but it is not all the time that you have a moraic syllable there. And like the example that I was giving now, when you talk about students, you are having a consonant at the end of that particular word, you have about 4 consonants following each other. When you transfer students, you're actually having 3 consonant initial, 4 consonants at the end. And you have some other examples like that. Now, if you have, but then all this make up the same syllable that you are having there. So it has weight. It has a lot of weight. Then you can have, like I think I gave an example of when you have compound words, you tend to have the possibility of that happening again, because you're supposed to have stress on stress. Now you may have stress following each other like that. Then and that stress may actually be followed by a heavy consonant makeup again. So you may likely have moral there. And then you see now that we have talked about some of the violation you can have is when you have a situation where you're supposed to have a no coda, and then you are putting that particular consonant into jeopardy. And these are the things that can happen where optimality theory is applied. So when the element is determined as being heavy, and then you decide to say, okay, you are breaking it, or because you just think that this is too long, then we are breaking it, you may have a situation there. Then you may have a violation there. But whereas if you have a situation where, okay, this particular element, it should not be left open, then it is closed. Then it is not always words.
Mommy,
Hello.
Please unmute yourself, please.
Unmute yourself now.
So when you are having these particular elements here now, that you are having a violation where you are supposed to have a consonant that is like, okay, if you look at students now, the tendency is that we may decide to break this into 2, but it is not. So when you have such contiguous consonant following each other, you are likely to have a case of moral, but then it is not in all cases that you have a moral, because you also have like when you may have two similar following, like in this case I'm giving, if you say should, now normally should, you don't pronounce the li. You just actually have just a single consonant there, so it is not heavy. But in the case of students, that it looks like you are having double consonants there, but you don't, I mean, double syllables there, but you actually have only a single one. So, but you have a very heavy one. So these are the things that you look at when you are doing your transcription. And then when you apply the optimality theory, that you look at all the tendencies that you have been given, and then you now apply and now look at it that, okay, this one now, is it a moraic or is it not? And then what makes it to be moraic, what makes it not to be? And these are the things that you look at, and that's okay. This particular element is actually a moraic, it's a moral because it has this contiguous consonant, and so it is heavy. But this particular one, why is it not? But it looks as if it is, but it is not. And so when you apply the rules there, then you now begin to see, okay, this one can be this kind of, like you have should, you have would. The tendency is that you are not likely to have. You're not likely to have a case of a moral there, because you don't have a heavy syllable ending there. So these are the things that you look at, and you begin to look at, okay, for this reason, you cannot place this in this particular position, but whereas this one that doesn't look like it actually bears that position. So these are the elements that you have that. So let us do a recap by looking at this activity. What is the obligatory element in the syllable? I don't think this should be a difficult thing for us to talk about. What is the obligatory element?
That's the vowel, man.
You say what?
That's the vowel.
Who is answering? Who is talking? I don't know who is talking.
It's Sylvester, man.
Is that Sylvester?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the vowel is the obligatory element. Okay, good. Now let's look at the, let's give examples of syllables to show its different parts. Now you are going to use the vowel, the example, and tell me the different parts of the example you are giving. So who goes first?
Okay.
Who goes first? Give me a syllable, then show me the different parts it has. Okay, Olaiwola.
Yes, ma. Thank you, Prof.
Okay,
I want to give the example, but B-U-T.
But.
And but.
Why do you need to spell it?
Oh.
Spell it correctly, and I will know what you're saying.
Okay, I think you will say my pronunciation is not that correct. That is why I spelled it. All right.
You are just assuming I will say so.
So the first sound is onset, because it is the initial consonant which comes before the nucleus.
Okay.
And
what is the nucleus?
The nucleus is the obligatory.
Who is disturbing us there? Akiyemi Abidin. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first part is onset, which is which is non-obligatory in that one, but in the word, but is onset. Vowel number 10 is the nucleus, because it is the only obligatory. It is the vowel sound, and the last sound, which is the consonant sound, is the coda of that particular syllable.
Okay, but as anyway, when you pronounce it, it will have a syllable. It will have a stress. Okay. So who wants to go next?
Okay. Let's try another one.
Who wants to go next?
All right, ma'am.
Go. Rest, man.
I'll give an example.
Who is talking?
Let's see.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Because me, I cannot hear her.
The fault is
Can you
from
guys
Hello. Is that Akosile? Ayobumi. Your voice is cracking. Okay. Please, who wants to try again? Who wants to give us another example? Sylvester, please.
Okay, I'll go with the case of the word spring. Spring.
Okay.
I don't need to say anyway. And the three initial consonants in it, SPRO is the onset, while the short E sound is the nucleus, which is the vowel, and the ing, which is the coda.
The what?
Spring. Spring. The ing in it, which is the coda. The E sound in it, which is the vowel or the nucleus, and the SPRO, which is the onset of the word.
Okay. So your coda is a single syllable or it's a single consonant or double consonant?
It's a single.
How many consonants do you have in your coda?
Only one.
Okay,
I have
good,
the
good.
NG that will translate to the ing sound in the consonant.
I have heard you have said it's only one. You have answered my question. So give a brief explanation of how a syllable can be turned to be has been moraic. Who wants to try that? Who wants to try that?
I've been moraic.
When we call a syllable as being moraic, what makes the
Can you hear
syllable
me
to
now,
become
ma?
moraic? Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello,
now.
ma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I said I'm giving the example of strength. Strength.
Okay. Strange or strength?
Strength.
Oh, strength.
Ending with strength. SPRENGTH. Strength.
Because you are not calling it word now, that's why we are not hearing you. It's strength.
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that's a word with a single syllable. Then it has its nucleus. So it is, we can say it is moraic because it will look as if there are much vowels there, but it's only nucleus that we have there. Because it's only
Explain why do you say it is why do you say it's moraic, please? Explain.
Just because it is somehow heavy. So it will look as if the vowels, the consonants at the and at the end stage, the consonants are much, but we have just only consonants, and that's voiceless. Then to
what do you mean the consonants are much? You are not saying. You are not saying anything. You're not saying anything. What do you mean by consonants are much? That's pedestrian. She's not hearing me. Okay, Bila, you want to help her?
Yeah, ma. Based on that, how a syllable can be termed as being moraic.
Only just one consonant.
Ma, can you hear me, ma?
I can hear you, but she's not hearing us because she's continuing to talk. Yeah, I've already moved on because I was not hearing you again. So we have moved on and asked our group to speak.
I'm no more talking. I'm no more talking, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Bila, please go ahead.
Okay. I think a syllable can be termed as being moraic when we have about 2-3 consonants together in a word. For instance, the word sprinkle has 3 consonant sounds, 3 consonants at the beginning of that word.
Is that what makes a word moraic? Is that what makes a syllable moraic?
Okay, the length. The number of consonant sound determines the length of
On which side of the syllable?
Okay, should be at the end.
Okay. Thank you for correcting yourself.
At the end, ma'am.
Okay. When you have two or more syllables following consequentially, that's when you begin to suspect a Moraic occurrence. Okay. So good. It has been a more lively class today. So questions? It's already after 9. Anyway, I know it was a very long class, and I was suspecting it should be. Any question or anything? Okay, Bilo, you still want to say something?
No, ma'am, no.
Lower your hand then. Isikata Abdul, say whether it's the out of the class. I don't know. Is she there? She's asking whether she's out of the class. You are sending a message and you are asking whether you are out of the class. And she said she cannot hear anything. Are you guys hearing me?
We can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Prof.
So do you have any
Can hear
question?
you,
Do you have
ma'am.
anything you want us to discuss? Okay. So thank you for your time. So see you guys in the next class. I will try this week and see if I can put up something in the discussion forum for us.
All right, ma.
Okay. God bless you guys.
God bless you,
Thank
ma.
you,
Good
ma'am.
night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good
Night,
night.
ma'am.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night.
Bye-bye.